Soyez les bienvenus. J'ai oublié Ken Chapuivi. Je ne vous donne pas les détails que mon collègue Dr. Binwin vient de vous donner, ça, tous les chiffres. J'ai exactement le même chiffre que vous, madame. La même chose, peut-être. Mais je vous demande pardon aussi parce que dernièrement, j'ai passé beaucoup de temps avec une couple qui vient de la Russie. Est-ce que vous êtes au courant avec les situations de madame Dr. Yusikina et son mari Mikhail de Sibérie? Ils sont en difficulté énorme maintenant parce que c'est possible qu'ils sont renvoyés en Russie. Et pour les raisons de l'environnement, cette professeure a critiqué le gouvernement de M. Poutine. Et je pense que le chien était tué, comme vous le savez de votre histoire. C'est tellement dangereux. I want to thank my dear friend Senator No, and Elizabeth May has left, for the enormous work they have done to try to keep these two people in Canada. And if any of you will take up the cause, it's been in the media a lot lately. I would be very grateful if you contact one of us and we'll try to give you more details. I was going to mention that I talked to your journalist about this, that I'm from Alberta. Nobody else from Alberta here, except, yes, two people from Calgary. Well, would you not agree with me that the oil sands in Calgary in Fort McMurray are extremely important, 200 billion barrels. But in the 70s, ladies and gentlemen, Great Canadian Oil Sands let oil, bitumen if you like, go into the Athabasca River, and the question was whether the government of Alberta was going to prosecute them, because, you know, you're trying to encourage them. Well, I want you to know we did prosecute them. I was there. It was a week-long trial. We didn't convict them, but we certainly gave it our best shot. The problem with a government like that in Hanoi or in Beijing is there's no such thing as the rule of law. Some people don't have the law applied against them, and some people do, like Madam Mushroom, and I'll speak about her in a moment. Anyway, I better get to my text here. I'm going to be ruled out of order here. I'm trying to talk about ethics and public policy and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. As you probably all know, the preamble to the 1945 United Nations Charter pledged member states, quote, to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors. A similar ideal inspired the League of Nations earlier, but long before leaders in various fields of endeavor had talked about the human family. And we are a human family, right? We're all in the human family. 7.5 billion of us. Thank you. Today, when never before have nations had so much in common, the issues that divide us have rarely been so obvious. Tensions abound, I'm sorry to say. The more people, though, accept the logic of growing interdependence of human society, the more we should be seeking to overcome destructive notions of otherness and separateness. Now, in my view, and I'm sure it's yours too, effective global governance also requires democratic institutions and the rule of law without fear or favor. The need for multi-party democracy arises out of the close linkage between legitimacy and effectiveness. Institutions that lack legitimacy are seldom effective over the longer term. Democracy has to do with the exercise of power, of course, and the recognition that imposition and coercion, however contrived, are unacceptable and in the end unworkable. Right, now here I'd like to give you a couple of elements of a global ethic and some representative individuals and groups who practice these universal values. First, of course, caring for the natural environment. Well, Mother Mushroom. At the age of 26, as I'm sure you all know, she was arrested because of her blog posts critical of the Chinese bauxite mining at the Spratly and Paracel Islands. 2016, she protested the massive fish kill, which we heard about earlier. She was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. She had participated in numerous public protests calling for a better environment. Earlier this month, she was named the Civil Rights Defender of the Year 2015, the International Woman of Courage recipient, and nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize this year. She was unexpectedly released from prison and left Vietnam for exile in the United States, landing in Houston with her elderly mother and 2 children. She vows that she will continue to raise her voice for the natural environment and human dignity in Vietnam. I think apparently it's a 3-hour drive from Houston to Austin. If I can do it next week, I would love to do it if she's available. Okay, practicing moderation is another value, in my view. And we have to give full support to all of those around the world who practice tolerance and peace. Permit me to draw your attention. Well, I was going to draw your attention to 2 groups, but I think that I was going to talk a little bit about the Baha'i group and also the Hizmet movement, but I'll skip that. I'd like to say, though, a word about showing concern and compassion for migrants and refugees. I don't have to tell anyone who's of origin in Vietnam that that's a good thing to do. But how many of you think that Angela Merkel is the leading world leader right now? No hands are going up. One, yes. 2, oh dear, 3. Well, who is a better world leader than Angela Merkel right now? Nobody. Why didn't you put your hand up? Well, I absolutely agree with you. And well, you all know that as thousands of refugees were arriving on Europe's shores, she told her caucus, and I know somebody in her caucus who told her this, she said, our duty is to step forward and help these people. And she insisted on doing it, and the caucus went along with her. She also insisted that extremism and racism must be confronted not only in Germany, but, quote, no matter where it happens in the world. That's leadership. She made 2 decisions that would come to define her tenure. She chose to allow Syrian refugees fleeing a brutal civil war who had already registered elsewhere in the European Union to come to Germany. And, oh, by the way, I'm very happy to tell you that tonight, Marion Dewar's son, Paul, do they know this? Is getting the keys to the city of Ottawa. If any of you want to walk over to City Hall, it's about a 15-minute walk. I think it's happening at 7 o'clock. You'd be very welcome to come and see. You probably know Paul is extremely ill, and but it's finally City Hall is doing this. So it's literally happening tonight that he's going to get the key of the city of Ottawa. Okay, I'm jumping around with this. Oh yeah, one person I have to talk about, because I nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm sure you know about him. His name is Gao Zhisheng. Does anyone know about Gao Zhisheng in China? Well, he's called the conscience of China. He received his 2nd nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2008. He gained international acclaim for donating his lawyer's skills to defend evicted farmers, miners, underground Christians, dissidents, and disabled persons. But in criticizing the government over what they were doing to the Falun Gong community, he had weeks of torture and ended only when he agreed to confess in a false article saying that Falun Gong had tricked him into writing to the U.S. Congress. Shortly after his release for a brief period, he wrote a letter detailing his ordeal and authorizing its release to the public. His latest book, Unwavering Conviction, and I recommend it to all of you, is co-published by the American Bar Association and it's been featured in many places. His wife and 2 children are in Cupertino, California, and about a month ago I went down and gave him an award from our group called First Step Forum. He's the world hero. Please, if you have some time when you look him up, he's an amazing person. Next thing is respect for minorities. I worry a lot about every minority these days. A lot of minorities in some countries. Here's what Nelson Mandela said, and he's, of course, hope he's your hero too. I say to all those leaders, do not look the other way, do not hesitate. It is within your power to avoid a genocide of humanity. Kofi Annan, genocide begins with the killing of one man or woman, not for what he has done, but because of who he is. Nadia Murad Bassi-Tah, who just got the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you all know all about her? Probably you do. Well, she's a Yazidi. The ISIS fighters killed about 600 people in her village, including 6 of her brothers and sisters. Terrible things happened to her. I won't go into the details. But she's managed to escape after her captor accidentally left the door unlocked. And she's now 25 years of age. She's living in Germany. On October the 5th, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her, quote, effort to end the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict. Okay, now you're going to say, how are you going to draw any conclusion from that? Well, as has been said a couple of times today, the 11-member Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, will enter into a force from December, liberalizing world trade at a point when the United States is upping its trade war with China. Australia recently became the 6th nation to ratify, which means that it's now going to come into vigor. It will bind economies such as Vietnam's, and I know that Vietnam hasn't ratified, but I think we all presume that it will, and I hope that it will. I think it will be a very good thing for the people, the country, and to avoid things like what we're talking about today, if it does join. It's got Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, Peru, and Vietnam still have to ratify. Now, here, quote, this sends a strong message that new 21st century rules for free and fair trade are spreading around the world, said Tomomitsu Motegi, who's Japan's Minister of State for Economic Fiscal Policy. The TPP, which, will you tell me, Anne, why it was rebranded the Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership? I don't think those words are going to last too long. I think it's going to be known as the TPP. It's one of new types of super regional trade deals. I understand there are a lot of professionals in this room, and may I urge you to go back in your own cities to form human rights groups that can help people who are having their human rights violated in Vietnam. If you need any help with it, Elizabeth May and Senator No and Anne, I'm sure, would be more than happy to help you too. We've got to do that. Human rights in Vietnam are in a terrible situation. To end on a short anecdote, some of you have heard this before, certainly Senator No has. They sent 2 of us over to Hanoi, how many years ago? Gosh, a number of years ago, to try to get some prison. 94. 94? Not that old. All right, anyway, we got there, we had a 3-day visa. So the first day we met with the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I guess we made a good impression. And the second day we were invited to go golfing. Do you know they have very exotic golf courses in Hanoi? And Senator Mac Harb and I were there, and Mac Harb told me he had lost a golf game to another golfer who was blind. How do you lose a golf game to somebody who's blind? Anyway, they won, and I guess they liked that. They thought we were nice people. So they apparently released, we had a list, was it about 300 people? We want prisoners who wanted to get out? Was it 700?
They released 7.
They released 7. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, and you know the reason they released them is because the Prime Minister wanted to come to Canada. So by releasing 7 prisoners, it was going to help pave the way for a trip. You're laughing. You don't think that was the reason? But will you come up and correct me after I sit down? Anyway, so you could have enormous leverage now, I think. Also because Vietnam's a member of the TPP, you'll have that leverage that they got to stay in good terms with the TPP, and I think that's going to be a real help for us to fighting. And does anyone here doubt the reason that Mother Mushroom got out of Vietnam with her family last week had to do with the TPP? Does anyone think it was some other reason? No hands went up. Please bring that. Anyway, thank you very much.